The Enhanced Jira Query tool provides an easy-to-use mechanism for retrieving Jira project data via Jira filters into Google Sheets. It allows easy access to virtually all your Jira fields and their respective properties, as well as derived fields such as time and status, cycle time, work time, and unplanned work. Here are some of the high-level features and capabilities. You can easily retrieve the specific data you need from Jira by specifying the Jira filter, fields, formats, and column names you want to see in the spreadsheet. You can get flow-based metrics like cycle time, lead time, and wait time, and configure what statuses fall into each of those metrics. It works with either Jira Cloud or Jira Server as long as you can access it via basic authentication, meaning a username and password or a Jira Web Token. There's no cost. The tool is free and requires no additional infrastructure or platform licensing. The tool can be configured for automatic execution and requires no modifications to Jira and or admin privileges. Okay, I'm going to show you how to set up and execute a query in the Enhanced Jira Query tool. So the first thing we need to do is go to Jira, and we need to either create or find a filter that we want to use. The filter is what the tool uses to determine what issues will be brought into the tool. The columns that you may have selected here have nothing to do with the tool itself. We'll configure what columns we want in the tool. So the filter, it can be anything. It can be one or more projects with whatever kinds of criteria you want in it. The tool doesn't care. All it knows is that it's going to run a filter and it's going to bring back a bunch of rows. So what we need from the filter is we need the filter ID, which we can find in the URL for the filter. So I'm just going to copy that. Now we're going to go back to the query tool, and I'm going to create a new query just by going to the Queries tab. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this EJQT Demo. I'm going to paste my query ID in there. Now if I go back to the query data page, this is where the data is retrieved to. I click on the drop down and then look, I find my new query, EJQT Demo. So I'm going to select that. Right. Now I need to tell the tool what columns I want to be returned. So these were here previously. Let's just wipe these out and walk through how we would create new ones. So I want the key. So I'm going to take the key ID. I want the status. I want the status dot name. Yep, status name. And let's also get story points. And I want cycle time and lead time. All right. Now, if I just leave it like this, it will retrieve these fields and it will label the column header with whatever the names are here. So those aren't real nice looking, so I'm just going to clean those up, and I'm going to give it custom column names. So I'm just going to call it that's key, the status, and we'll give it story points and cycle time and lead time. Okay, so now if we go back to the query data page, and then we go to the JQT options menu, I just select Run Query. Okay, there's my return data. So I'm going to do one other thing here. I'm going to go back to the query configuration, and for these, I'm just going to say I don't want any decimal places, so I'm just going to give that a format string for each of them, and then we'll go back and run it again. Oh, you know what? I also noticed I didn't actually want the ID. Let's come back here. I want key.key. Let's run that again. So one of the big differences between just using the Jira Search tool and using this tool gives you access to all the properties of the fields. So that is the key.key, the key property of the key field. The key ID is a different property. So this tool lets you select any property of any field that you have configured, which is one of the benefits of using it. So that's that's a basic setup and execution of a query. Real simple. Okay, so let me give you some quick background on where all that information came from. So if we go back to the Query Configurations tab, you see this drop-down list of all these different fields. So those come from this Available Fields sheet. This is something that you run basically once or occasionally. Up here you can select this refresh available fields, and it will go to Jira and it will fill in all this information for you. And that will populate the list that it then uses for you to select fields from. The ones that say special, these aren't actually fields within Jira. These are derived fields that the tool is actually calculating. So cycle time and lead time, what it's doing is it's grabbing the information out of the history of the status changes and then calculating these. You configure what makes up cycle time and lead time in the workflows configuration. So for a given workflow that you have in your Jira project, you will list all the statuses in that workflow, and then for cycle time you list the statuses that make up cycle time along with the cycle time work statuses. Those are the statuses where work is actively being done versus like a waiting status. And then you do the same thing for lead time. You list all the statuses that make up lead time and then the statuses that make up lead time work. And then the tool will use that to then determine how to calculate cycle time and lead time respectively. And if you have more than one workflow for different issue types, you can configure up to 4 in the tool. So that's a high-level explanation of how the tool works and a little bit about the configuration. If you're interested in more depth about how to set up and configure it, you can look at the Enhanced Jira Query Tool Guide, or I also have a video training class on Udemy if you're interested in going through that. It provides a lot of in-depth explanation of the configurations along with a lot of examples and examples of how to use the data. So I hope you find the tool useful.